Hello and welcome to McKillop Library Online. In this video, we are going to be reading Gittel's Journey, an Ellis Island Story. And this story is by Lesléa Newman and with pictures by Amy June Bates. And I do apologize for those of you who suffered through my Pappy Has a Motorcycle and had to listen to me try to pronounce Spanish words. This one has Yiddish words, which are even a little bit more challenging for me. So I'm going to do my best. I've tried to look up how to say some of them online, and we will see what we get. This does have really beautiful pictures, so I'm going to try to make sure that you can see them as well. Let's go this way. They're kind of almost like Great Depression era looking. Gittel, will you write to me from America? Reza asked. Yes, Gittel answered, and you can write back and tell me how Frida likes living with you. Gittel turned to Mama, who was standing in the doorway, wiping one of her eyes with the worn white handkerchief she always kept in her pocket. Can't we take Frida with us? She asked for the 100th time. No, Gittel, Mama replied, also for the 100th time. We cannot bring a goat to America. Now come inside and set the table. The sun is about to set, and it's time to light the candles for Shabbos. Mama lit the tall white candles, and she and Gittel circled their hands 3 times to gather in the Sabbath light. Together they sang the blessing and then sat down to eat. The next morning, Gittel pulled on a heavy woolen skirt and sweater, 2 pairs of socks, and her winter coat and boots. Mama handed her a sack that held 2 apples, a large hunk of bread, and a small wedge of cheese. Farewell, Reza. Sie gesund. Gittel kissed Reza on the cheek and then hugged Reza's mama, papa, and baby brother. Sie gesund, Frida. Gittel gave this little white goat one last pat on the head and then turned away. Mama had told Gittel that she had to be very brave, so she blinked her eyes and tried not to cry. Mama blinked her eyes too and dabbed at them with her handkerchief. Then she and Gittel started off. Wait, Gittel, Reza called. Basha wants to come with you. Reza held out the rag doll she and Gittel loved to play with. Gittel looked at Mama, who had made her leave her own rag doll and so many other things behind. It's all right, Gittel, Mama blinked and wiped her eye again. Say thank you to Reza. Ashenim Dank, Gittel said as she tucked the small doll into her coat pocket. And then she and Mama set off on their long walk to the port. Many other people were making their way toward the seacoast. Some were on foot, some sat on donkeys, and a few rode in horse-drawn carts. When Gittel and her mother arrived at the port, they entered a big building and stepped into line. Stay close to me, Mama said, taking Gittel's hand, and do just as I tell you. I will, Mama, Gittel said. There were many people jostling about, and one of them pushed Gittel right up against her mother's soft woolen coat. It tickled her nose, and she sneezed loudly. Gittel, her mother hissed, no sneezing. Why? Gittel asked. What's wrong with sneezing? Mama gave Gittel a stern look. You must be quiet as a mouse, Mama whispered, and not draw attention to yourself. Soon Gittel and her mother reached the head of the line. Stick out your tongue, a burly man with a bristly beard ordered Gittel. Blink your eyes. Show me your hands. Gittel did as she was told. The man nodded and then turned to Mama. What is wrong with your eye? It's nothing, said Mama. I shed a few tears over leaving my home. Surely you can understand that. I understand all right, the man said. Dry your eye and come back to me. The man turned to the next person in line while Mama wiped her runny eye. Then she returned to the man. Your eye is still red. It is an infection. Your request to go to America is denied. But, next, the man turned his back. Mama pulled at the man's sleeve. Sir, she pleaded. Go home, the man brushed Mama's hand off his sleeve like a crumb of challah. Next. Come, Mama, let's go home, said Gittel, smiling at the thought. Won't Reza and Frida be surprised? Gittel, Mama put her hands on Gittel's shoulder and looked her in the eye. Home is not safe for us. You are going to America to have a better life. By myself? Gittel's voice came out in a squeak. She was only 9 years old. How could she go to America without Mama? You must be very brave, Gittel. Take this. Mama handed her a small cloth bundle. My Shabbos candlesticks are wrapped inside. Be careful not to lose them. And here's your ticket. And this. Mama handed Gittel a folded piece of paper. This is my cousin's name and address. Do not lose this paper. When you get to America, show it to an immigration officer. He will help you find my cousin. Mindel is expecting us, and he will welcome you. But Mama, Shah, Shana Madel, no crying. Mama held up a finger. Do you want your eye to get infected like mine? Then you won't be able to go either. I don't want to go. I want to stay here with you. Shah, Mama said again, folding Gittel's hand around the piece of paper. This is God's plan. God will take care of you. Gittel stepped into line. The ship was so big it made Gittel feel very, very small. An officer took her ticket, pinned an identification tag onto her coat, and waved her on board. Gittel scurried up a steep staircase and pushed her way to the front of the crowd. She grabbed onto the ship's cold, wet railing with one hand and with the other tightly clenched the paper. She waved until the ship pulled away from the dock and Mama was out of sight. Gittel held onto the piece of paper with the name and address of Mama's cousin, just as Mama had told her to. She gripped it tightly while she stood in line with her dinner pail, and she carefully placed it on her lap as she sat down on a hard wooden bench to eat her herring and soup. "Come play cards with my brother and me," a Yiddish-speaking girl called to Gittel. She pushed the piece of paper down into her skirt pocket and went to join their game. Later, she made sure the paper was still safely tucked away as she clapped along to a lively tune some jolly men were singing, even though she didn't understand a word. Gittel spent many lonely hours sitting on her berth talking to Basha. "I miss Reza," she said to the little rag doll. "I miss Frida. I miss Mama," Gittel wailed. When Shabbos arrived, Gittel cried an ocean of tears. She had Mama's candlesticks but no candles. Mama had candles but no candlesticks. Candles and candlesticks belonged together, just as she and Mama belonged together. Gittel shut her eyes and sang the Sabbath blessing softly to herself. It only made her sadder. The journey continued, and Gittel continued holding on to her piece of paper. She slid it under her pillow at night as she lay on a scratchy straw mattress, longing for Mama to sing her a lullaby. And she squeezed it during the day as she sat on her metal berth, worrying about her new life in America. "What if Mama's cousin Mindel doesn't like me?" Gittel asked Basha. "What if my new teacher doesn't like me? What if English is too hard to learn? What if I never see Mama again?" Gittel stared into Basha's shiny black button eyes looking for answers, but Basha had no reply. One morning, there was a big commotion on the boat. Gittel scrambled up to deck to see what the excitement was about. "Look, look!" Everyone pointed in the same direction as a great cheer arose. "There she is!" "Who?" Gittel asked. "The Statue of Liberty," said a man standing beside Gittel as he waved his cap in the air and wept. "She's welcoming us to America." Gittel looked across the water and gasped at the sight of an enormous woman rising out of the ocean, wearing a crown and holding a torch high in the air. She was the most astonishing thing that Gittel had ever seen, and she wished Mama was standing beside her so she could see the enormous woman too. Soon the ship pulled into the harbor, and its loud, shrill whistle blew. Gittel placed Basha inside her coat pocket next to her note from Mama and rushed down the gangplank with all the other passengers. Their boots and shoes made quite a clatter. Gittel stepped off the ship, happy to feel solid ground beneath her feet for the first time in 2 weeks. Soon she found herself on board another boat, a small, crowded barge heading for Ellis Island. Cold ocean spray smacked Gittel in the face, and when she licked her lips, she tasted salt. But she didn't mind. Any minute now, she would be in America. When the barge docked, Gittel got off the ship and joined a crowd trudging up a steep stairway into a giant room filled with so many people speaking so loudly in so many languages that Gittel couldn't understand a thing. At the top of the stairs, a doctor hastily looked her over and quickly waved her through. Gittel waited in a long line until finally she stood before a man wearing thick glasses. He sat on a tall chair, scowling down at her and barking sharp, unfamiliar words. She wanted to run away, but Mama had told her to be brave, so she took a deep breath and stayed where she was. The man shouted again, and then another man stepped over, glanced at the identification tag pinned to her coat, and spoke. "Wie heißt du?" asked the man. Hearing the familiar Yiddish words made Gittel feel a little less afraid. "Ich heiße Gittel," she replied. "Please take me to my Mama's cousin." She handed the interpreter the piece of paper Mama had given her back home. "His name is Mindel. Here's his address." The interpreter unfolded the piece of paper and looked at it. He turned it over. Then he turned it back. "There is no address here," he said to Gittel in a gentle voice. "Yes, there is," Gittel said. "My Mama wrote it down for me." "See for yourself," said the interpreter. Gittel looked at the piece of paper. There was nothing on it but a fat blue smear. The immigration officer wearing thick glasses pointed to Gittel's hand, which was spotted with ink, and muttered something to the interpreter. "What is this Mindel's last name?" the interpreter asked. "I don't know," Gittel answered. "What will I do?" Tears spilled from her eyes. "Shaw," said the interpreter, "don't cry. We will take care of you." Gittel stayed where she was while the kind interpreter spoke to one immigrant after another in many different languages. When Gittel grew tired, the interpreter pulled out a chair so she could sit next to the scowling immigration officer. When Gittel grew hungry, the interpreter gave her a bowl of soup. And when Gittel grew bored, the interpreter whisked the immigration officer's cap off his head and placed it on Gittel's with a laugh. "Say, that would make a swell picture," said a man with a large camera who snapped Gittel's photo. "That gives me an idea," the interpreter said. That night, Gittel lay on a thin mattress in a dormitory on Ellis Island surrounded by strangers. She had no pillow, so she put her lumpy cloth bundle under her head, clutched Basha tight, and cried herself to sleep. The next day, the interpreter came to find her. He had a big smile on his face and a folded Jewish newspaper tucked under his arm. "Do you recognize this Shana Meidel?" he asked Gittel, pointing to the paper. "It's me," Gittel cried, amazed to see her photo on the very front page. That afternoon, the interpreter brought a man to see her. It was Mama's cousin Mindel, come to take her home. "I saw you in the paper and recognized you right away," Mindel said to her. "You look just like your mama." Uncle Mindel sent Mama the newspaper so she could see how famous Gittel had become. He helped Gittel write a letter to raise a two. Months passed before Gittel received a letter back from Mama. "My eye is all healed," Mama wrote. "I will see you soon." And a few weeks later, she stepped through the gates of Ellis Island to gather Gittel in her arms. "Come, Mama." Gittel kissed Mama's cheek, stepped back, and took her by the hand. "Let's go home. The sun is about to set, and it's time to light the candles for Shabbos." Well, I hope you enjoyed that story. That, again, was Gittel's Journey by Lesléa Newman, and look forward to more videos.